Welcome back, fellow seekers of ancient truths, to our latest explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled to dust off these forgotten tomes with you today as we take on the mantle of the ancient scholar. We're diving deep into the profound record of Oryn Khar. If you know the lore, you know he's the immovable foundation beneath that devastating conflict, the War of Crowns. We're unpacking a massive mythological world-building chapter today regarding the natural masters and the 72 demons of Solomon. Specifically, we're looking at the power that challenges demonic crowns, not with fire, not with swords, but with absolute stillness. Let's get into it. Let the sheer gravity of those words settle for just a second. We're examining a natural force here that literally waited in absolute silence before humanity or demons even existed. The sources tell us that before rivers carried memory or forests grew tall enough to hide kingdoms, stone was already there. It didn't shout, it didn't chase anyone down, and it certainly didn't bargain. Because it just waited, it became this ultimate keeper of records. It remembered the foundational truths that every other impatient power in the world so quickly forgot.
All right, let's start at the beginning. Part 1, the origin of the first mountain and the ancient mason.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the stark contrast between nature's completely unyielding creation and the patient, gathered weight of human masonry. The text actually give us two distinct origin stories that together forged Oryn Khar's mind. The oldest legend claims he was born when the very first mountain refused to move for the first storm. Picture this. The storm screamed and tore at the earth for 9 days straight with white fire. But the mountain? It just remained. It didn't budge. And from that simple refusal came a mind. But there's another story. It says he was assembled slowly, piece by piece, from the weight of every foundation ever laid by human hands. Every wall protecting children, every single grave marker, every temple floor. The stones listened, and eventually they gathered into one shared will. So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that Oryn Khar is not a god, he's not a demon, and he's definitely not a tyrant. He's simply the inevitable answer to the earth asking one question: who's going to remember when the fire burns the records? His power is deeply conditional. He is the keeper of unmoving things. We're talking cliffs, old walls, buried statues. He doesn't rise up to conquer. He only rises when balance, memory, and boundaries are utterly violated by the arrogance of demonic crowns.
Moving right along. Part 2, the laws of stone power. Look at how the loud, chaotic, deceptive authority of the demonic crowns is just completely dismantled by the silent, neutral truth of stone. The 72 demons completely rely on recognition. Their hierarchy is super elaborate, right? Kings, dukes, presidents, earls, they all demand to be obeyed simply because they hold those titles. They press their will through hierarchy, desire, and pure fear. But stone power, it respects absolutely none of that automatically. It just doesn't care. When a demon terrifies a city, stone simply remembers that the terror began with a lie, basically stripping away the very stage on which that demonic fear is trying to perform.
Let's take a beat to absorb these 5 fundamental laws because they perfectly balance endurance with consequence. First up, weight. Every action carries mass, which makes hidden motives physically heavy. Second is witness. Stone sees slowly, sure, but it forgets almost nothing. It records footsteps, spilled blood, spoken bargains. Third, boundary. These are lines that literally cannot be crossed without consequence, like city walls or sacred markers. Fourth is pressure. Stone doesn't always strike out. Sometimes it simply increases the cost of a lie. And fifth, fracture. Stone can break, yes, but when it breaks truthfully, it creates sharp new edges and warnings for the future. Which brings us to part 3, the Court of Stone.
Now these lesser keepers show us exactly how Oryn's silent judgment functions out in the real world. Keep in mind, this isn't some demonic hierarchy of servants groveling to a master. Not at all. These are just different faces of one single law. The Granite Wardens are particularly fascinating. They guard endurance. They literally strengthen the walls, the bridges, and even the human hearts of those surviving under long, crushing pressure. And the Obsidian Witnesses, they act as the sharp edge of truth. They cut right through illusion to reflect the true face a liar is trying so desperately to hide.
Part 4. The Weight of Deceptive Crowns. Let's see this in action. Just imagine the slow, terrifying progression inside a corrupt official's palace. During the War of Crowns, fearful human officials tried to build these sealed fortresses and underground councils. They were making dark bargains with lesser spirits just to hide their corrupt records. But Oryn makes the very walls of deception feel unbearably heavy to the people living inside. He didn't just topple the fortresses to crush the innocent. Instead, he made the stones remember aloud. Think about that. Walls literally cracking in the exact shapes of hidden names. Floors suddenly revealing footprints that were meant to be entirely secret. Doors would just jam shut the moment a lie was carried through them. The officials slowly felt their own palaces physically pressing inward on them. It's a terrifying kind of justice. And this overwhelming pressure, it absolutely applies to the highest demons too. Even the highest of the 72 crowns, like Bael, the first king, quickly discovered that declaring themselves first doesn't make a mountain move. Bael approached Oryn, wearing 3 forms overlapping in one massive shadow, and demanded the stone remember its place beneath crowns. And Oryn? He simply appeared as an old, unassuming mason carrying a cracked pillar. He looked at Bael with the unbothered patience of a mountain and just asked, "You call yourself first? First to do what?" Let that philosophical strike really sink in. It systematically dismantles all that demonic pride. Bael proudly claimed he was the first to be named. Oryn's reply destroys that logic from the ground up. Demonic authority is literally just an inscription. It's a title carved after the fact. The stone, the actual foundation, has to exist before the carving can even happen. In that moment, Bael felt the mountain trembling, not from fear, but from measurement. The stone simply refused to be impressed. Which brings us to our final act. Part 5, Oryn Khar at the Threshold. Okay, let's dive into this defining, intimately human encounter. Oryn Khar, who is heavily burdened by Belial's demonic ember at this point, asks the ancient mason to teach him true weight. Oryn realized something terrifying. The power Belial left inside him was making others obey him way too easily. It wasn't a gift, it was becoming a prison. So he traveled all the way to the old quarry of Sen. He didn't draw some elaborate magic circle. He didn't offer blood. He simply placed his bare hands on the quarry floor and humbly asked for an anger.
13 stones. 13 stones were placed directly into Oryn's hand by Oryn, and each one was a heavy, incredibly painful memory of manipulation and human complicity. Oryn had to bear the weight of these memories without placing all the blame on just one side. This was an absolutely profound test. The stones held the arrogance of humans, the raging fire of demons, a mother trading a desperate prayer for certainty, a whole forest burned down just to build a fortress. If Oryn blamed only the demons, the stones grew impossibly heavy. If he blamed only the humans, they grew freezing cold. He had to accept the dual, messy nature of hunger and deception for the weight to finally become bearable.
This right here is the ultimate, profound rule passed from Oryn to Oryn. It perfectly echoes the massive responsibility of bearing true consequence. Stone doesn't care about who wins the battle on the field. It doesn't care who holds the shiniest title. It only cares about the cost. This completely shifts our entire understanding of the War of Crowns. It goes from being a simple, flashy contest of power into a deep,
unflinching accounting of what that power destroys just to build its thrones. And this brilliantly illustrates why Oryn Khar leaves Ilion with just a simple, plain gray stone. It's a reminder that natural power doesn't rule. It reminds the world what cannot be owned. Remember when Belial confronted Oryn in a dream, angrily accusing the Master of Stone of making his demonic fire smaller? Oryn simply replied, "No, I make it carryable." Oryn provided the fire with a hearth, so it wouldn't completely consume Ilion. Wisdom needs weight, fire needs a hearth, and power absolutely needs consequence.
I want to leave you, my fellow scholars, with this final, provocative thought. Ponder the hidden costs behind every foundation in your own world. Oryn Khar teaches us that endurance is not the same thing as just stubbornly refusing change. True power actually lies in bearing the weight of consequence. So, the next time you look upon a massive monument or hear a loud, powerful voice demand to be called first, stop and ask yourself, what is this actually built upon? What does it protect? And what does it imprison? Thank you so much for exploring the silent, unyielding depths of the Master of Stone with me today.